Okay, Bezos Hashem, this Erev Shabbos, we're looking at another two Midos through the Sefira of Malchus, coming closer each day. It's mamish unbelievable when you think about it. Right around the corner, heading into to greet the Melech on Shavuot. So we're preparing a little bit, looking at the Midos leading up, and today we're looking at Gevura ShebeMalchut and Tiferet ShebeMalchut, discipline, resistance within monarchy and beauty within monarchy, within leadership. So yesterday we kind of began to break the ice into the Midah of Malchus. We looked at what it means in Kabbalistic terms. Malchus is the expression of the incredible, innumerable number of details of the interrelationships of the different facets of Hashem's Ratzon and how ultimately they're manifest in the world. And we see that as being embodied in a midah, in a person who represents the klal, right? So it's the klal pradu klal. It's the whole idea of a melech representing the am. And we saw how the aspect of chesed b'malchus has to be that the melech, in representing the am, represents the life of the people. And it's David Melech Yisrael Chai v'Kayam. It's Am Yisrael is Chai. There's this association between the Malchus, the actual system that comes into being, and being alive as a result of that. So the system enlivens the details of the system. Today we're looking at the next step of Malchus, the next two steps, and it begins with the aspect of Gevura ShebeMalchut. So Gevura, as we've looked in the past, is Ezehu Gibor Hakovesh Es Yitzro. The notion of Gevura is, to an extent, the midah of din, which deals with specificity and the way that the individual responds to details rather than in broad strokes. They're involved with the actual details themselves, and we find this idea of the connection between a melech and the whole notion of din, right? Where we find that is really Rosh Hashanah, right? The whole idea of how we're mamlech HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and he's Melech Yoshev Bedin. That's our whole association to the day. It's a day in which Hashem is a Melech, and in being a Melech, he's also the one who's judging us. Is the notion that as the Melech has a responsibility to care for each and every detail within the system, not just to care for the life force of the system per se, that the system should come to fruition and that it should have its continuity and expression. But the Melech is somebody who has to care passionately about the details. So we find that Shlomo Melech talks about this. He says, Melech Yoshev al Kisei Din Mizareh be'inav kol ra. A king who sits on the throne of justice. He winnows away all evil. His role is to cast away the dross and the negative elements within the system, things that might be causing the downfall to the space which the Melech is representing, and allow himself, in order to properly support and sustain the life and vibrancy of the system that he represents, of the space, of the entire olam that he is the melech of, he has to be attentive to the details. And this is why, again, this is an expression of care. That's why we speak about, when we come to Rosh Hashanah, the idea of how the very fact that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is dan es briosav is expressive of the love that HaKadosh Baruch Hu has for his bria. Because if he didn't love, he wouldn't care. And if he didn't care, he wouldn't judge. Because we only judge and we only pay attention to the things which we are sensitive to, whether for bad or for good. And so we find this idea of the connection between din and the ability to rise into the position of melech throughout Chazal. One beautiful medrash says, in the Medrash Rabbah in Shmos, asks the question, Lama Nasan HaKadosh Baruch Hu Keter LeYehuda? Why was Yehuda given the crown of the Malchus? We saw a different medrash a couple of weeks ago, a different reason why Yehuda received the crown. Here the Medrash Rabbah says that he wasn't the strongest. Why was he chosen to be the king? Says the Medrash, Ela Shedan Din Emes LeTamar. The reason why he was Zocha to be the king was because he judged true justice for Tamar. When Tamar was being taken out to be killed on his orders, and she said, well, whoever's signet ring this is, that's the guy who really impregnated me, and you should probably pay a closer look to that guy. And rather than sweeping the justice under the carpet, Yehuda was attentive to the needs of the individual in front of him, and he said, Tzadka mimeni, she's actually correct, this woman, she's righteous. L'chein nasa dayan ha'olam, therefore he became the judge of the entire world. By being the melech, he becomes the one who's attentive to the needs of each and every individual, of the space which he represents, of the body that he represents. And Memela, we find this idea by Shlomo Melech also, right? There's all these stories. Our tradition is filled with stories of, different people coming to Shlomo asking for his brilliant insight and his justice that he can actually officiate. The Medrash also says very beautifully, in explaining the pasuk Melech b'mishpat yamid aretz, that a king through justice sustains the world. V'ish trumot yarsena, and a person of trumot destroys it, tramples over the world. So says the Medrash, what does that mean? So it says, what it refers to is, what is this concept of ish trumot yarsena? So it says, if a person treats justice as something that they can just throw into the corner of their house, like truma. Truma is for the non-Kohen, is something which you set aside and you don't touch, you don't deal with it. So it says the Medrash, if you treat justice like truma in that sense, that you just throw it to the corner and you don't pay attention to it, and you say to yourself, V'omer, mali b'torach hatzibor, what do I care about the needs of the tzibor? Mala b'dinehem, what do I need to take care of their justice? Mali lishmoa b'kolam, what do I have to hear their voices? Let me take care of myself. Shalom alayich nafshi. As long as I'm at peace, good riddance to the truma, let it sit in the corner and rot, burn it off in the oven, the way that we do nowadays. It says the Medrash, Harezim machriv ha'olam. You're destroying the world. A person who's in a position of leadership, who has the opportunity to effectuate change, who represents the klal, has to be sensitive to the needs of the klal. The language of the Medrash Rabbah is even stronger. It says, who's an ish terumos? It says it's a Talmud Chacham who knows halacha, he knows midrashim, he knows agadatas. But when an orphan and a widow come to him for help, he says, no, I'm very busy with my learning. Asuk ani b'mishnasi. I'm very involved I'm chazring shas. I don't have time to take care of the orphan, the widow. Eini panui, I'm not available. Amar lo Elohim, Hashem says to him, Mala ani alecha kilu hechravtes ha'olam. I consider it as if you destroyed the world. Here you are representing the klal, and you can't be attentive to the needs of the tzibur. You're not attentive to the people at what you deem, what is it? They're not significant enough for you. And so this is part of the difficulties of being in a position of leadership. It's why Chazal say, the Mishnah Pirkei Avos, Ehov es hamalacha usnas harabanos. Shmaya tells us, you got to hate positions of leadership. Because there's obviously a tremendous amount of responsibility and attentiveness which is required of a person in order to stand in the position of Malchus. And it's to that extent, there's a very high level of discipline which goes into what it takes to manage that level of leadership. Right? It says the Gemara in Pesachim, Rabbi Yochanan says, Oy lo l'rabbanos, woe to leadership, woe to authority. Shemekaveres es ba'aleh, it buries its masters. Right? You're in a position of leadership. How many people in a position of leadership die, young from a stroke, from heart failure, from stress? I mean, obviously, because when the stakes are so much higher and your responsibility is so much greater, there's obviously a larger degree to which that affects your ability to be an individual, and as far as your ability to handle that. And so the only way that a melech can truly embrace the midah of Malchus fully, along with that Gevura, is having the discipline to respect the role that he plays. And that to realize that it's not in as much as he's a king that he is in charge or is in control, but it's in as much as he's a king that he's attentive to the needs of the people. Right? So as Chazal say, kana eved, kana rav. Right? If you acquire a servant, you acquire a master. So that the king, in rising to a position of leadership, he actually becomes responsible for the needs of the people as individuals, not in the sense of broad strokes as long as they're alive and well, people could be dying off on the countryside. The leader needs to be attentive to the needs of the people. And I think this is why Chazal say that there's a aspect of yira which it takes to be a king. a certain degree of reverence, of awe, the seriousness that only a king knows that it entails in order to truly be the king. As the Medrash Rabbah says, Kol mishahu yarei min HaKadosh Baruch Hu sofa lasos melech. Anyone who truly has the midah of yira to the maximum capacity ultimately is a king and becomes a king. We learn it from Avraham Avinu. We learn it from Moshe Rabbeinu. This idea of ki ati yadati ki rei Elohimani, and that's why the Gemara in Brachos says that the bracha that we say when we see a Malchei Yisrael, says the Gemara, Haroa Malchei Yisrael, what's the bracha we say on a Jewish king? Baruch atah Hashem Elokeinu melech haolam shechalak mikvodo liyareav. That Hashem apportions some of His honor to those who fear Him, to those who revere Him. Who says that they revere Hashem? I mean, who says? Mehechitezi is a Jewish guy, Gevura Russia. But if you're representing the people of Israel, ultimately there's a level of recognition of what your place is. And there's something very humbling about being responsible for the millions of constituents that you represent. That ultimately you don't have that vantage point until you've risen to that level of perspective, where you can see each and every person and the needs that they have. And you'll sit Yomam V'Laila, as Moshe Rabbeinu did, being dan the din of each and every person, and Yisro comes along and thinks he's got a great idea. Lamaisa Moshe knew what he was doing to an extent. There's an aspect of that leadership which was true, that he was sitting there, and Moshe rebukes the Jewish people at the end of his life for saying, we don't need you, we can put a Sanhedrin in his place. What are you, crazy? Who do you want to learn from? Who's it better to learn from? From the person who killed himself over the Torah? Who's sacrificing his entire life, literally, physically, metaphorically, for the Jewish people? So this is the type of person who embodies the leadership characteristics of a melech. Now, transitioning forward to the Tiferet ShebeMalchut, the beauty, harmony, symmetry within Malchus. We have the idea expressed in Chazal that a melech is meant to be beautiful in the eyes of the people. So we have the idea, the Gemara in Tainus says, Yud Zayin Amud Aleph, that the melech has to get a haircut every single day. Melech mistaper b'chol yom. Why, says the Gemara, why does a king have to get a haircut every day? Well, because the Pasuk says, Yishayo, melech biyafyo techazena inecha. Your eyes should see the king in his beauty. So there should be something beautiful about rulership, about kingship. We don't want to see the dross, the details, the behind the scenes of the king. This is something that I found personally when I was watching. They made this kind of documentary series about Queen Elizabeth II. It's called The Crown. It's sort of recommended. It's interesting. But one of the things that I found that was demeaning was that you found out so much about the personal, kind of the smallness of the person who's actually meant to be a larger-than-life figure. Because one of the things that, as the embodiment of the klal, one of the things that a person who expresses malchus is supposed to do is look polished and pristine. Express to the people the best of the people. So the queen is always in perfect presentation, always smiling, always calm demeanor, always collect. Because there's something that gives hope, gives continuity to the people, that they sense they're part of something. The beauty that the king or the queen represents, that the monarch represents, shows the people the ideal that they are seeking to have in their life. But more than that, it's only in expressing the individual voices of each member of the klal that the king is able to have that representation and beauty. In other words, it's because the melech successfully harnesses the midah of Gevura ShebeMalchut that they're able to emerge into the midah of Tiferet ShebeMalchut. And a place that I want to come to arriving at this from is a fascinating medrash in the Medrash Rabbah and Shir Hashirim. It's also in the Medrash Rabbah and Koheles, which has an amazing thing. The Medrash says, talking about the book of Tehillim itself, which was written primarily by David HaMelech, but the Medrash says that they were actually, does it say, the Pasuk says, Banui letalpiot, Kimigdal David Savarech Banui letalpiot. So it says the Medrash, what does this mean, Banui letalpiot? It's a sefer which is built upon many voices. Sha'amrulo piot harbe, many different voices come together in the book of Tehillim. Asara b'nei Adam, Amru Sefer Tehillim. There are 10 people who are involved in the authorship of the book of Tehillim. You have Adam and Abraham and Moshe, David, Shlomo, so on and so forth. Whole debate, the Bnei Korach, Ezra, and so on and so forth. Fine. So asks the Medrash, so that even though there was these 10 people, we associate the book of Tehillim with being written by David HaMelech. Right? Everyone says David wrote the book of Tehillim. Why? Says the Medrash. Bikulon lo nemar al shmotam el al yidei David Melech Yisrael. None of them have the book attributed to them, only David. So it says, it gives a mashal. And it says, mashal ma davar dome. It's like a group of people who want to sing a song to the king. So the king says, listen, you guys are all great, you're all wonderful people, and it's really, really nice, but such and such is going to be the one, Ish Ploni, is going to do it for all of you. Why? Because he's got a sweet voice. I know you guys have written a beautiful poem, and it's really, really nice. But this guy, he's going to be able to give voice to the song which you've put together. Right? So Jacob's mashal is the opposite side, but the same idea of what the Medrash is saying. So says the Medrash, Kach, B'shah shebikshu asara at-tzadikim lomar sefer Tehillim, when you had these 10 tzadikim who wanted to say the book of Tehillim, Amar lev HaKadosh Baruch Hu, listen, you guys are all sweet, you're all really great chasidim, and you're all really praiseworthy. Elo David yomar al yidei kulchem. David's going to say it for all of you. Lama shekolo arev, because his voice is beautiful. As the pasuk in Shmuel says, U'ne'im zmirot Yisrael, the sweet song singer of Israel. And that's why David HaMelech was chosen, because he has this beautiful voice. So he's able to express and to bring together all of the different details of the input that each one of the other authors and contributors to the book were able to bring into it. The Melech is somebody who can harmonize those voices and give voice and kind of show the broader perspective that, yes, you're working hundreds of hours on the fields out there 500 miles out, and these guys are working in the corporate offices in the center city, and these guys are doing their online businesses, and that guy's got his small shops along the side, and all of you are playing this song together. And the Melech is the one who gives voice to the individuals that are a part of that symphony and says, yes, you're part of something. Let me show you. Let me sing the song for you. And it's to that extent, you should know, that the Gemara says in Sanhedrin, that the reason why Chizkiyahu was not chosen to be the Mashiach, says the Gemara in Sanhedrin, Sadi Dalad Amud Aleph, that Chizkiyahu was not chosen to be the Mashiach because he was unable to sing Shiros v'Tishbachos. He didn't have this ability of song that David HaMelech had. And so the ability to, by the way, and this is the nature of song, right? The whole experience of song is that you've got all of these disparate notes, components of the music, and if you would play each and every note 20 minutes apart from one another, obviously there would be no continuity, there would be no, synthesis and coming together of the music. It's only insofar as they're being united that they become part of a single tapestry of the music. It's the job of the Melech to be able to bring those parts together, to allow each and every voice within the body that he represents, that he's the leader of, to allow each of those voices to find its place and to come to fruition. And this is why the Rambam says that the Leiv Melech is Leiv Kol Kahal Yisrael. The heart of the king is the heart of the entire people. Because embodied within the heart of the king is the needs and the feelings and the unspoken expression of everything that his people, that his constituents represent. And so this is why we find the Medrash also says that when Moshe Rabbeinu was speaking to HaKadosh Baruch Hu about who was going to be the future leader of the Jewish people after Moshe would pass on, so the Medrash Tanchuma in Parshas Pinchas says that Moshe begged the HaKadosh Baruch Hu at the time that he was dying, and he said, Ribono shel olam, galoi v'yadu lefanecha, daitem shekol echad v'yachad. Hashem, you know our people. Each and every one of them has got his own mind, and he's willing to speak it. And they're all unutterably unique. K'sha'ani mistalek mehen, when I leave, b'bakasha mimcha, I beg you, Hashem, in bikashta lemanos aleim manhig, if you want to put a leader, menei aleim adam she'eh sovel lechol echad ve'echad lefi daito. Make sure you're choosing somebody who can handle each and every one of them on their own level, based on their own mind space, where they're at, the type of person that they are. Because it's only a person who is fully relatable to each and every person that is going to be able to allow each person's potential and each person's note on the song of the Jewish people to ultimately shine. And it's for that part of that reason that the Torah is called a Shira. Atam kiskol lechem as a Shira hazos is a reference to the Torah. And we know that Kabbalistically we have this idea how every one of the Nishmas Yisrael is one letter within the Torah. The Torah is in entirety is the song of the Jewish people. Much in the same way that it's the song of HaKadosh Baruch Hu's neshama that he spilled onto the paper of the Sefer Torah. And so Mamela, what the Middot of Tiferet ShebeMalchut demands is that in whatever capacity a person is a leader, and we all are leaders in some way or another, because we all represent the Jewish people. And whether we believe that we do or we don't, we're ultimately representing on the front lines. When a person is representing, a person is being expression of what it means to be Yisrael in this world, we need to listen carefully, attentively, to the needs and to the voices, to the cries of each and every member of Yisrael, and indeed each and every aspect of life on this planet that we find ourselves exposed to. And allow ourselves to be the one who gives voice to all of those different voices who maybe are not being heard. As David HaMelech was the Ne'im Zmirot Yisrael, the sweet song singer of Israel, we need to carry that voice for the people. We need to allow ourselves to express the needs of others in ways that perhaps aren't being attended to. And then if you see a need within the Jewish people that is not being met, and then you can elevate it into the song of the people, it's our responsibility as leaders to reflect within our own responsibilities those needs of another person. It might be a person who's feeling down, who's not feeling their greatest self, who maybe is not being recognized for the person that they actually are, for the beautiful contribution to the people of Israel that they actually constitute as being who they are. It's the job of a leader to sing the praises and to beautify the details of the system, of the cohort, of the domain that he represents. In the way that David HaMelech elevated the voices of even those who were greater than him. But as being a leader, his responsibility demanded that he would be able to give voice to the constituents of the people of the organization that he represented. So Be'ezus Hashem, as we go through the ShebeMalchut and we experience the presence of Malchus embodied within this Shabbos, the beauty of Shabbos, the regality of Shabbos, we should be zocheh to discover that beauty, and we should have the opportunity to integrate within ourselves the beauty of the entire Am, to represent our people with majesty, with glory, Be'ezus Hashem, as was begun actually on this day, the reunification of Yerushalayim Ir HaKodesh, the place of beauty in this world, the Tiferet Beit Tifarteinu, should Be'ezus Hashem, we should see the subsequent steps in establishing Yerushalayim as the eternal capital of the Malchus based David B'mher B'yameinu. So wonderful Shabbos to everybody. All the best. Sei gesund. What do we have over here? Right. Why did Yosef die early? Right. The good die young. Right. Brachos Daf Daled Amud Aleph. Lo Chassid Ani. Right. He wakes up. He takes care of the people. Right. Very beautiful. Right. Yadi Meluchlachos B'dam B'shvir B'shilya. Mamish, knee deep in blood, taking care of the people. It's beautiful strawberry blonde, right? Yeah. Also, the Gemara, the pasuk describes him as Admoni im Yefei Einayim. He had these beautiful eyes. So the Medrash says that, what does it mean Yefei Einayim? So it says that when Yaakov saw that he was going to have this Admoni coming out, so he was very afraid he was going to be like Esav. So the Medrash says, well, don't worry, he was Yefei Einayim, because we know what is the Einei Ha'am, the Sanhedrin. So everything that David is going to do is by means of the input of the Sanhedrin. His Malchus is going to be kept in check within Din, within the Einei Ha'eda, that he's always able to filter it through the needs of the people, that he's not totalitarian regime where he's in charge of everything, and that there's no system of justice that's keeping him in check.